Grief isn't linear. You don't need a timeline to grow around loss. Hi, it's Sandra Mazili from Inner Action Counselling. Visit www.inneractioncounselling.co.uk. I want to talk about grief. I'm a grief specialist. It was bound to come up at some point. I want to focus on the pressure people seem to be under to move on, get over it, or fit the stages. Well, grief isn't a straight line and it isn't a set of emotional stages. It's something that shifts, returns, softens, intensifies, and changes shape as our lives change. That's normal. So, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. You may or may not have heard of the 5 stages of grief credited to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Now, she came up with this model to help frame experiences for people who were terminally ill and dying, so they knew they were going to die. She didn't expect anyone and everyone to take this model and apply it to every form of loss and grief. People move back and forth between periods of feeling the loss intensely and periods of engaging in daily life. That accounts for that sense of waves of grief. Feeling sad and confused and unable to do much one day, organizing your stuff and sorting things by size and color in your drawers the next. Sometimes this back and forth can take place over hours, but it's the same principle of oscillating between grief symptoms and rebuilding your life and getting to live. It can feel like, finally, I'm getting somewhere. Then, bam, back to feeling lost and numb or sad and confused again. Children experience something similar as well. By the way, it's referred to as puddle jumping. So if your child is upset or asking searching questions about death for 5 minutes, then having a kickabout with their friends seconds later, your first thought may be, oh, well, they're coping fine. They can't be that sad. They absolutely are. It's just that 5 minutes or 2-minute burst of pain and sadness is as much as they can take so young. So they may well jump through several more puddles of grief before the day is out. Returning back to the adult waves of grief, which are much bigger because we're bigger in every sense, not just size, but also emotionally, mentally, dare I say it, spiritually. So you're not failing. That's the point. This is a healthy form of grief, this back and forth thingy. Anniversaries, smells, so favorite perfume or aftershave or that favorite song on the radio or ordinary moments can bring feelings back sharply. But these aren't relapses. Oh, I'm going backwards. No, you're not. They are normal experiences and reactions to the material being presented to you. It may feel unpredictable, but it's a very human rhythm. Grief changes form over time. That doesn't mean it goes away or any of that. So people talk about time heals all wounds. I just hate that. It's time and support that can help you. And it does change over time. So early on, so the first few days or weeks or even months, that early grief may feel overwhelming. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It doesn't last. It seems like it does, but it will change. Later, so down the line, that grief may feel quieter, more reflective, or it could be more complex, but it will change. Timelines don't necessarily apply. Some people can grow from this very quickly, while others can't. As life evolves, new layers of meaning can emerge. I stress can because sometimes we feel lost and lack meaning, but sometimes we can find a new sense of purpose in different things. Now, I want to talk about a helpful way of looking at grief. And one of my favorite models, so we talked about a model that I don't really like that's used inappropriately a lot, the 5 stages of grief. And as you can imagine, there's a veritable sea of grief theory. The model I like best is the Tompkins model, developed by Lois Tonkin, growing around grief. Even with this model, there are different versions of it. You've got different sized cakes. I've got an image on my computer of different sized cakes. There's a fried egg version. The one I like the best is the jam jar tennis ball version. So picture this. You've got a jam jar, that's your life, and it's quite a small jam jar because in the early days, grief it feels like it's taking over your life. And there's a tennis ball in the jam jar, and that's the grief. And it's filling the jam jar at this point. You know, as far as you're concerned, that's all there is in your life, it's just the grief. So as time goes on, as I said earlier, with time and support, your life grows bigger. The jar grows bigger. The tennis ball is the same size, so your grief is the same size, but it doesn't feel as big because your life has grown around it. So it doesn't go, but it does feel more bearable as time goes on with support, whether that's social support, professional support, a mixture of the two. With time and support, that can change and your life can grow. It doesn't mean you've forgotten the person or people or animals, or you've moved on from them, or you're betraying them in any way by living. The grief is still there and a part of your life without dominating it. That's the point. You get to live your life and still carry your loss and remember. And in time, remember with love rather than so much pain. So what does that look like in real life? Being able to enjoy life while still feeling the loss in certain moments. Holding sadness and joy at the same time, because we're humans, we're not binary computers. Joy slot or sadness slot, we can feel both. This model respects your experiences. You don't have to fix your grief, and you don't have to let go to move forward. So, why isn't grief linear? I think we've jolly well covered a lot of this, but grief isn't linear because grief is tied to attachment and impact, not just love. People can grieve humans, animals, places, even events. Referring to people, it's often people who were loved and those who were abusive or frightening can be grieved for as well. It's important to know that because there's a lot of language around grief that's love and cherish and precious and things, and people who were complex in relation to us and have complex relationships and confusing or abusive or feared. There's also a loss there as well. And sometimes that can be really scary and confusing. Loved ones may have died and you may have mixed or conflicting feelings about them or others. And you may have been estranged from the person or people who've died. You'll still have feelings which need processing, and there's still a sense of loss, and you can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it grief or loss if they mean specific things to you that don't match up with your experience. But there is a something that has happened and a something that needs processing. Grief can be about the relationship or the relationship we wish we had, or the unresolved chapters left behind. Another reason grief isn't linear is because our nervous system processes grief in a cycle. We move between confronting the pain and taking restorative breaks. This is healthy oscillation, not backtracking. Reason number 3, grief isn't linear because we keep changing. New life stages. Becoming a parent, changing jobs, aging, all of this stuff can bring new perspectives and new emotional layers to the loss. If we're thinking about children and young adults, all sorts of things, relationships, environment, change, moving house, moving school, changing from primary to secondary or high school. Within years 7 to 13, there's lots of change, form groups being placed in different sets for different subjects. I could go on and on and on. 4th reason grief isn't linear, the inner relationship continues. Human, animal death and loss equals relationship. Even harmful or complicated relationships still have psychological meaning. Grief reflects the impact someone had on our sense of self, not the simplicity of the bond. So, what helps? Apart from therapy, I would say that I'm a therapist. And therapy can help untangle that ball of pain you have and help you make sense of things if you want to. If your grief isn't moving and changing and becoming bearable in a natural way and you're feeling stuck, a bit of therapeutic help and support from people you know, like, and trust can go a long way towards helping you grow around your grief. In a day-to-day way, some helpful ideas are: allow feelings to come in waves, like we've said, without judging them. Mark meaningful dates in ways which feel grounding and balanced to you. Creating rituals that honor the past while supporting the present. And seeking support at work, school, home, socially, professionally. Tune in to any worship communities you're a part of. So let's take some of these in turn. So we've discussed therapy in this video and in other ones. Talked about how grief can move and change naturally and grow with your life, grow into a sense of proportion and not take over your life, but you can grow to a point where it's like, yeah, I can hold this and I can feel happy again. So if it's been months or years and you feel like, well, it still feels like yesterday, that can be a good enough reason or jumpstart or motivation to seek assistance, whether that's from a therapist or even just kind of phoning a helpline to help you take stock. So allowing feelings to come in waves. So we've talked about that, oscillating and just doing it without judging yourself. So if you're feeling so tired you can't get out of bed one day and then feeling like you can just rearrange the whole house the next, and then feeling like you can barely acknowledge the person's name the next, acknowledging that for what it is. It's a grief symptom and you don't have to beat yourself up about it. Marking meaningful dates in ways which are grounding and balancing to you. Things like anniversaries, birthdays. If this is a parent, Mother's Day or Father's Day can be significant and sensitive. But unlike the person's favorite song coming on the radio, you know when anniversaries, birthdays, festival dates are, so you can plan how to look after yourself, because you may or may not be more sensitive on those days rather than ordinary days. And just nourishing yourself and creating rituals to honor the past while supporting the present really relates to maybe marking something on the anniversary or doing something else specific. So if there's a situation where, it's a family gathering, there's some ideas about having the person's picture up on a wall. Some people leave an empty chair for the person at a big dinner or something. So I'm thinking about like Christmas dinner or something like that. And some people be put off by that. So would rather have the person's favorite mug out or something like that. But whatever floats your boat, basically. Like some people do balloon release on an anniversary. So do something that means something to you. So seeking support at work, school, home, and socially and professionally, I think that's fairly obvious. But, if you have somebody you can turn to at home, or if you're a young person, an adult at school you can turn to, or a close friend who will have your back. Thinking about work colleagues, is there somebody you have an amicable relationship with who you can turn to with some of this stuff? Professionally, we've talked about therapy. You might be under a mental health service or crisis team. There are various mental health drop-in centers around. They'll be called different things in different counties. So they're called havens where I live in Surrey. And details of those are on my website in terms of the opening times and the links. And you can drop into them physically, and there are some virtual ones. But again, that refers to Surrey where I live. If you're a part of a worship community, that can be a really helpful resource. So I hope I've made it clear in this video that your grief doesn't need to follow a timeline. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's. If your path loops, pauses, or circles back, it's because your relationship with this loss, whatever it was, had and still has meaning and impact. And you can build a life spacious enough to hold both the pain and the growth. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of this video. I know grief isn't a laugh a minute, but we got there in the end. Like and subscribe for more interesting content. Until next time, take care and bye for now.